Hello, my name is Christopher Howe, and this is a presentation paper for IT 7023, Technologies for Social Networking. My presentation today will be on social network analysis. The paper I have chosen is Crawling Facebook for Social Network Analysis Purposes. The paper was written by 4 professors at the University of Messina, which is located in Italy. To summarize some of their work, what they did was capture 2 large data samples using privacy-compliant control crawlers, which is important, I can tell you, because Facebook's privacy rules did change in April. I'm pretty sure bulk collection, friendship collection, or connections like this now would be prohibited. But they were able to go out and collect it, and then they were able to make the data anonymous, and then go out and look for things like centrality, scaling laws, degree distribution, and organize it into an undirected graph. A little background on the paper is that while Facebook and MySpace and Twitter have proliferated, giving us a constant 24/7 online presence, the ability to analyze and kind of realize the pros and cons of the types of data you're collecting are still valuable and important because, for instance, they were saying that 44 terabytes for Facebook could be downloaded, but it would be impractical to analyze all of it. Instead, maybe a representative sample could be just as effective, but at the same time understanding that sampling, you always have a bit of bias to it. So kind of pick and choosing a smaller sample and having a bias versus it being meaningless to kind of analyze everything. But even modern day social networking still stands on the shoulders of experiments and books written well before it, such as 6 Degrees of Separation, which goes on to kind of separate social networking into 3 distinct fields: data collection, characterization of social networks, and online social network analysis. I even remember one experiment where they sent letters around the world to see who would respond back, to measure the degrees of separation between people in a population, saying that people on this side of the world, even all the way to the other side of the world, were still no more than 5 or 6 people apart. Now, these days we don't have to send letters anymore. We can use crawlers to go out there, and then that's what this paper intends to do, is take a subset of the Facebook data, use crawlers, and come to some particular findings on the data. Facebook uses a simple friendship schema, so the connections can be unweighted and undirectional. Using breadth first search, you're able to create a first in, first out queue for the crawler. This is able to go out and do uniform sampling, but also can do rejection sampling based on the fact that Facebook uses IDs, so you can go out and check these IDs and see if they're valid, and if they're not, you can reject them and move on, creating a bit of randomness to your sampling. Regardless of the methods used to collect the data, there's still some things that can't really be modified, such as the crawler stopping, or the crawler's just going to go out and hit the friend list and go through and cycle everybody. So you can't really modify that to skip over anybody in the list unless they've already been visited. And you can't just visit anybody. Facebook monetizes the data they collect from you and I, so they're not just going to want to give that away freely. So you can't mine data regardless of what you intend to use it for, apparently, academically or for any business-related purposes. This study had the crawler go out and run for about 10 days, going 3 levels deep on the seed user that the crawler started with, so essentially collecting the data of friends of friends of friends. Limitations found by the crawler were that they could only pull 400 HTTP GET requests. at once, unless they got some commercially available tools that pretty much simulated that of it made Facebook servers think that it was an end user or a human querying the data, but just a straight up grab with an HTTP GET request was limited at 400, so they were throttled. And as mentioned in the beginning, they did have two sets of data, which were used for the two different algorithms mentioned before, which were the uniform and the BFS, to kind of cross-check and evaluate each other for data integrity. After both data sets were generated, they did deduplicate the data, capturing about 12.5 million users. They were able to see that for the BFS data sample set, that the degree of separation was about 396.8. Moving on to the uniform data set, collected almost 8 million users, but they did things a little different. They actually had 8 different crawlers and 8 different queues being fed. These crawlers generated 2 graphs for the Uni and BFS crawlers, where the diameter of each graph proved the previous prediction of the 6 degrees of separation, with D being the diameter, which is the number of hops between 2 nodes on each side of the graph. And the results indicate a major difference between the 2 graphs was the clustering coefficient, which is a ratio of 2 randomly selected clients having a hop between them that connects them. In a very small mesh network, your ratio would be 1, but as the graph grows and extends, that ratio is going to be less. Thus, in our Uni crawler, we're going to have that, nearly 30 million users compared to the other crawler, which had about 8. So obviously our coefficient is going to be less than 1, much more drastically, with the results from the crawler that pulled more with the Uni data than it would be with the crawler that pulled less for the BFS. In conclusion, the paper talks about not being able to capitalize on at the time, which was 2010, the 500 million users Facebook had, which currently as of this month is 1 billion active users, but not being able to capitalize on that, but using a subset of data, they were able to mine and still get the results they needed to validate the 6 degrees of separation. What I found interesting most was that the privacy settings for the amount of users on Facebook who had implemented it could actually be calculated, because they were expecting around 65,000 users based on the crawlers, and yet they only got results for 48,000 back. So that indicates roughly 25% of users only actually having their privacy settings turned on, where only their friends can see their friends. And that concludes the video summary portion of this presentation. I look forward to your feedback, and I also look forward to learning more in the future about looking at these degrees of separation and maybe figuring out who the odd outliers are, and maybe what we can do to extend the social network out to them, to kind of include them into the group, to keep it a little more tight-knit. A little more tight-knit would indicate to me a lot more conversation or interaction between them. So again, I'd like to thank you, and I look forward to seeing all of your video posts as well.